breaking down the numbers for us. And Ken, I was asking you before the break, price of unga. Of course we knew it was an election year. Of course we knew it wouldn't last for long when it was 90 shillings. But people are suffering.
Absolutely. If you look at one of the strategies for the Big Four, it's on food security. And the issue of food security was a big topic last year, especially during the elections. You never want to go into an election when food prices are very expensive. You remember the French Revolution. That was one of the reasons that brought down the French Empire.
That's right.
You know, just the cost of food. So I think one of the big strategies that we've been pushing, that government has been pushing, is how do we make ourselves food secure? We've just talked about, a good example is Kiambu County. All that agricultural red soil is going into real estate. So the leadership there need to think, if all our land is going into real estate, where is the food that's going to feed people coming from? And that's why we introduce zoning. They need to do what is called zoning, because in zoning, you say in this part of the county, this will be an agricultural part. In this part, it will be real estate. But right now, I think it's really real estate going there. So I think we really need to think about, yes, we have a young population. Yes, landowners want to cash in big on the real estate phenomenon, but the long-term thinking, where is the bread basket of this economy going to be? Even if you go up to what they call the food basket, the areas of Uasin Gishu, Trans Nzoia, a lot of people are opting away from maize farming to real estate, again, putting up malls, putting up such things. So what the incentive? What are the incentives we are giving farmers to make sure that they continue producing and feeding the country? That's the big question right now. Because if that doesn't happen, we continue importing food. And when you import food, you are at the mercy of international barons who will price you at any rate.
Absolutely.
So I think food security is something that, and we have this thing called what they call the strategic grain reserve. This was supposed to be a facility where, as a maize farmer, you could go and put your commodity there and get a receipt. It was called warehouse receipting. With that receipt, it's actually like cash. You could go and cash it in. And for me, I think these are the game-changing ideas we need to get from the agricultural docket right now.
What about Galana Kulalu? Was that a white elephant? Was that a bust? Is that a...
I mean, we're talking of 1 million acres. I mean, that's something a lot of people cannot even begin to fathom. I think in the long term, it might be successful. Obviously, the last few years have been challenging. It's been getting a few kilograms or bags, you know, per acre.
Yes.
But if you talk to real farmers, I don't know how much time you spend mashinani. When you talk to ordinary farmers, they'll tell you that small-scale, diversified farming is really what supports this economy. The farmer who does a bit of maize, a bit of chicken, a bit of goat, a bit of that, what is sustains this economy.
And not large scale.
The large scale, I mean, I'm sure you saw it in the big estates in the US, but there are some unnatural elements that these always introduce. And a lot of people push maybe GMO sort of like planting for these large scale areas because these crops were meant to be interdependent. You know, the manure from the goat sort of is good for, or the manure from the rabbit is good for the sukuma wiki. That's the traditional African way. So we need to really think. I'm not saying large-scale farming is terrible, but you need to understand, is it sustainable, or can we have a mix of both? And that's what will introduce chicken farming. I mean, I remember those, I was seeing a farmer doing some chicken farming in Kajiado, 30,000 chicken, you know, and they'll be supplying to the big houses here. It's fantastic, but sometimes one begs to wonder, you know, are these chicken growing up in exactly the same conditions that your normal chicken in the normal mashinani place would be? Because we have lifestyle diseases that are coming up, and a lot of people are fearing that these chickens are hormone fed, hormone injected. You know, the American model where you chase profit.
Quick turnaround.
Exactly.
Bottom line, Ken, the president's 4-point plan, if you will, is this going to take off? I mean, how serious is this government about those 4-point plan you were talking about, which is infrastructure,
food security,
health, manufacturing, and universal healthcare. I think he's super serious. I think he said he's not going to engage in any other dialogue that does not involve the big four. And why does he say that? I'm sure he's been told that if you look at affordable housing right now in Nairobi, if you look at the slums in Kibera, people are suffering out there. So the cost of land in Kenya has made it that it's almost every developer wants to create high-end properties so that he can get their returns back. So who's going to do the middle and the lower house? You know, those are the big questions. Where are we going to get investors who are going to put in, 100,000 low-cost units? So those are the strategic questions that you have to ask. In a country where interest rates are high and land prices are high, developers are going to shun away from that. The next thing is universal healthcare. In this country, that's been an issue. And if you look at the models that work in Canada, where you could easily go to any hospital and just with your card, you'll be attended to. It's something that is still an aspiration in Kenya. How do you make that happen right now? Especially when we saw the other day, the big police services, the teachers' unions, all having sort of issues with the insurance. So that means, how do you create a model in which both the insurance companies, both the hospital providers, and the you and me who go to these hospitals have a meaningful stake in that?
Yeah.
Then manufacturing, I've already talked about it. It contributes 9% to the GDP. Can it do more? Can we get it to 20%? Of course, we've seen some vehicle assemblies coming up in Thika, but yes, we can do a lot. The beauty
Which I
about
think is still, just to cut you too,
Yeah.
if you've seen what Ethiopia is doing in industrialization.
The industrial park.
That's the industrial part. It's called OSA or something.
Yeah, OSA.
That's huge. That is huge.
Oh, yeah. Manufacturing requires ability to scale, and that's where you see China. Ethiopia is 100 million people, and it's a very homogenic society, unlike Kenya, which is a very heterogenic in terms of a lot more diversity.
Correct.
I think Kenya is going to be more of a service economy, much like the UK, and I don't think Ethiopia is going to be more of the Chinese model, because manufacturing requires you have a lot of people, big land, really, and big factories, and that's why, and cheap energy. Ethiopia is putting up the Renaissance Dam, which is going to produce more energy than Kenya combined, one dam.
Good Lord.
What?
We're talking of 9,000 megawatts. In Kenya, we aspire to be at 5,000 megawatts in the next few years. They are going to do one dam of 9,000 megawatts. So for them, they have a scale advantage. I think for Kenya, services is going to be really the game changer, because we're an entry point into these countries. So things around logistics, transport, and that's why you see a lot of apps, the Ubers, the Taxifys, the Sendis, they're doing very well because they're tapping onto that logistical sort of artery of the economy.
Wow. Ken, final comments moving forward as a nation.
I think we should expect a much better 2018. I think for a lot of people, 2017 was a tough year. Yes, there's still some political noise, but every projection that I've seen is we're going to grow at 5.5 to 5.6, which is not bad. It's not double digits, but it's getting there. And what's going to drive this thing? It's going to be the effort of the ordinary Mwananchi. It's going to be these young people. Kenya's, as I've told you, 75% of Kenya is below 35 years.
Yeah.
All these people, can they get good skills to participate in the economy? Because if they participate, you're going to experience what is called the demographic dividend, which I think can play in our favor.
Absolutely. Ken Gishinga, Chief Economist, Mentoria Consulting. Always a pleasure to have you on Hot 96. Thanks so much for your insights.
Thanks for having me.